I didn't know there were so many types of reading. Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is all about the different types of reading that I do since starting a booktube channel. I personally did not know there were many types of reading, but I am so glad that there are, and we're going to break them down a little bit today in a discussion style video. Before we jump into the main content, make sure you check in the description box down below for links to my social media and Discord should you want to come along for the ride. Now, I thought I'd take a little bit of time to explain what the different types of reading are, and we're going to go through alpha reading, beta reading, arc reviewing, and also just plain review copies, because I do get asked a few questions, particularly about those first two, the alpha and the beta reads. What do they mean, and how do they actually help an author? Let's start off with the alpha read. An alpha read is when me, or a reader, is approached by an author to get an unedited copy of a manuscript. So this is basically a first draft of an author's work. Maybe they would have taken one pass through it, but it's fairly not refined is probably the best way to put it. It's the word vomit that's come out of the author's head, and they're looking for some guidance or some structure and how to tighten it up. Or maybe they just want an opinion or a couple of opinions. They'll have certain questions that they'll send out. Some will send out a report to do, or some questions just generally about what you think about the unedited manuscript as it is. And sometimes the reader will create a reading report for the author. So that is something that I do, is I will try, and so the couple that I've done, I did a beta read for someone a while ago, and then I used the same sort of report style format for the alpha read, and I manipulated it a little bit in terms of alpha is different to beta. Alpha reads tend to be a lot rougher, and you need to be able to think outside the box a little bit more because the author is trying to convey a message, and they just want some general notes or some guidance before they start refining it and getting it ready for the beta stages. Alpha reads to me are so much fun, and it is a collaborative process. You get to work with an author on their baby, and it's just amazing. I really, really love alpha reading. Yes, it can be a little bit tougher to get through for your brain because you're trying to put yourself in the author's mindset as they were writing the story. This can be more difficult if you're reading a first draft of a first book, but I find if I'm alpha reading a second book in a series that I've already started, I tend to be able to align myself a little bit more, but I'm hoping to get some of those first draft of a first book reads in as well, because I just like being part of the process. I just want to be friends with the authors that I read, and that's a good way to be able to do it, but also I genuinely like being part of the creative process as it goes along. Moving on to beta reads. So this is basically what happens before the final edits go through, before they go through a copy editor and they get ready for the finish line. So a beta read, you'll normally get call outs from things like Bookstagram, Facebook. There's groups on Facebook if you want to become a beta or an arc reader. I'm a part of a couple of those. I've read some great books through those. If you've got an email address on your booktube channel, authors will pop in and say, hey, I've got this book coming out, would you want to be a beta reader for it? And you can sort of pick and choose depending on what interests you to give the author the best chance possible to be in a positive light. Probably pick the books that you're actually interested in, and you can give those notes to the author as, you know, a reader who's interested in those genres. I don't think I've said no yet. I think I have guided authors before, particularly fantasy romance, and just said, look, fantasy romance is not my preferred genre. Romance elements don't tend to work for me a whole hell of a lot. Happy to read it from the mindset of your target audience and do the best that I can, and I've had still a pretty good time with doing that. A beta read essentially comes before the final edit from the author, and also the final sort of proofread copy edit that they might be going through before they get it ready for the ARC readers. A beta read is an edited manuscript. It is an edited manuscript that has gone through sometimes alpha reading, sometimes authors won't use an alpha reader, but it would have had some form of edit. Maybe that might be a developmental edit, which is where a editor goes through and rips to shreds someone's work, but also gives them some structural guidance on how the book should flow. If characters aren't working, if particular structures within the story aren't working, if plot holes are there, a developmental editor will pick up those things. It may have just gone through 100 edits from the author themselves, where they've gone through, combed through, they can no longer find anything wrong with their manuscript, and they're ready to get an initial group of, or a secondary group of people to have a look through. I also like beta reading. It's no secret here, I'm a sucker for a good beta read. I don't tend to count beta reads in terms of my reading goal for the year, nor do I count alpha reads, but I do count ARC reads, which is what we will move on to next. An ARC read, or an advanced reader copy, is when an author has reached out to provide a copy of the book, normally in an e-format. It's the cheapest and easiest way for an author to be able to distribute those files, to have a review prior to release. The reason that these are important is because reviews help the algorithm on certain websites, big one being Amazon. I know we don't really love Amazon and we'd like to support the small indie independent publishers and whatever. Amazon is one of the best ways for an independent author to get their name out there, particularly with services like Kindle Unlimited. These sorts of requests are what will normally come through my personal Bookstagram account and also my business email address that I've got down in the description box down below. And it will be requests to read a book prior to release. And this is just to generate buzz. It's for the author to be able to pick quotes out of. Some authors have come to me and asked if they could pick a quote out of my review before it goes out, so they can put it on little marketing tools for themselves and they can then share those on social media. It's also a nice way for authors to gauge an audience. I would say this is really important for debut authors, to be talking to your ARC teams and to be able to build those relationships, so you then have a street team going forward into your next book if you're interested in publishing again. ARC reads are a lot of fun. I have some friends that I've made over the last year or so here on the platform, over here and on Bookstagram, and we tend to do similar ARC reads, so we tend to align and be able to talk about it. It's like unofficial buddy reads and they're a lot of fun. Have you done an ARC read before? Let me know in the comments below. What did you think of the process? The main thing with an ARC read is it needs to be released. Your review needs to be released prior to the book's release. I will always commit to an Instagram and a Goodreads review before release. Sometimes I can't get the YouTube stuff out before the release of the book, and then once the book is released, I'll put a review on Amazon so that they can start growing a little bit of traction there. Most authors will ask you to do that. So for a copy of the book, they'll ask you for an honest review. If you don't like the book, it's still, they want an honest review. They don't want you to fluff it up. They want your opinions about the book itself. They've chosen you for a reason to do that ARC read. Me personally, I tend to go into ARC reads with the notion of, if I think it's anything less than a 3-star for my personal tastes, I will reach out to that author directly first and explain why and ask if they still want the review up, because I don't want to hurt their chances or their ratings. Which brings me to review copies. So an advanced reader copy is a review copy that comes out prior to the release of the book, whereas review copies tend to be as the book's already in circulation. This can be for a book one in a series that might have, 6 or 7 books out, but we're not gaining a lot of traction, or the author's not gaining a lot of traction within that series, so they offer a book one to push those reviews out, because if you like a book one, you're more likely to pick up books 2, 3, etc. These for me generally come through the epicindie.met website, where we'll have authors that discover Epic Indie as a place to put their book and promote their book onto an indie-based SFF website, and they'll say, hey, I'd like to get a review of my book on this website. How do I go about that? And I tend to grab the reviews from there, and I will do a lot of reviews during my year. I personally tend to base my reading around these review copies and these review requests or ARC requests or book tours, because I enjoy doing them. They bring me joy to try and boost an author before a book is released, or even after release, to try and gain some of that traction there, and that's when you'll see the reviews come through from me on this platform. I will review every indie book that I read here on YouTube, and if I don't like it for any reason, I will ask the author whether they still want that review to go live. But most of the time I have a pretty good time with these reviews, because I get to pick and choose, or they pick and choose what they think will work for me personally. Like I said, I tend to base my reading around these review copies. You will see me bump trad published books or bump buddy reads for these review copies when they come in. I'm currently booked out up until June, putting a couple inside of each month, and they will be priority reads because I've committed myself to an author to do those review reads. But those are the different types of reading that I have done. I'm sure there are others. Let me know if you've done a different type of reading for an author down in the comments below. Maybe you're an editor and you've done an actual developmental edit, which is awesome, but my brain can't comprehend that, so I just offer the alpha reads as a reader perspective. But I'm sure that my wife would be able to talk to you more about the editing side of things if she wasn't so shy about coming on the camera. Again, I digress. That was a bit of a different video, a bit of a discussion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What type of reading do you like to do? Do you just like to pick up a book and go with it? Do you like to get review copies? Do you like advanced reader copies? Let us know. If you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will. I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.